And we're live. Hello.
Hello, namaste, namaste. Good to see you
We're
again. It's been all
live.
of 10 seconds.
Hey.
October's cooking with activity, is it not?
Oh,
Energetic
goodness gracious.
activity. Hmm.
Yes, it is.
Spiritual
Goodness.
and political and human and supernatural and animal. All of it. All of it. At least some retrogrades. My cat's doing it again.
Oh,
For those that don't, my cat's sitting off camera about 2 feet away, and he keeps watching something over my head, and there's nothing over my head that I can see. He's doing
yeah.
those kind of things, and then now he's yawned again. All right, so apparently something's coming and going.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, I'd pick up my camera and turn it to you because I'm a handsome boy, but I got crystals and rocks and wires and all that all over my computer, so I can't pick it up. Um, and he's not the kind of kitty that you just grab and cuddle. Mm-mm.
uh,
He's too proper. He's too that would be
he
entirely
has his
uncomfortable.
boundaries and he's let you know what those are.
He is 10 years old and he has his boundaries. He's a party boy. But anyway, his name is Loki for a reason, god of chaos. He's yeah, you leave him alone or you get the god of chaos. Him was pretty. Yep, and there he goes again. He's looking over my head. All right, so, but he's not reacting much to it, so I'm fine with that. Welcome
Okay.
to the show.
Yay! It's crazy week. Yes.
Absolutely. I am Margot Ross Sears. This is Iris, also known as Iris Carter. I
Oh, that's right. I didn't fill in my name
she
again.
didn't she
Yeah.
didn't fix it, and I got a piece of this sliding away from me. And tonight, we are doing our weekly podcast, which we do every Wednesday night since September of 2020. And we do a little bit of housekeeping to let people check in, come in. If you are, we do this live. If you are on Facebook or YouTube with us now, please type hello, hi, namaste, what up, bro,
Nama go.
namaste. I got a kitty cat too. I mean, careful. You can say whatever you need to. We humor counts. We like it, but let us know you're out there. It's hard for us to see until after the show who's watching. It lets us know we're not alone. And somebody from Pure Nutrition. Oh, hey, Rebecca. Becca, yay. I
Hi
recognize your
there.
face. She's out here. Excellent. And during the show, comments, questions are very, very welcome. Share, if you sharing an insight that's related to the topic or what have you. So, um, the show is Indigo Answers, talking about weird stuff in a rational way. If you don't know me or Iris, if you haven't met us before, please go to our very first broadcast called the prequel, and you can see our credentials, our background and experience in the very first episode. It takes about 30 minutes. You'll get an idea of what led us to here. And tonight we are focusing on Iris.
Mm.
Well, Iris is going to tell us what we're focusing on.
Yeah, I know what you meant. They might not know, but I did. Yeah, so we've been covering the chakras and we've been doing one a month and we're up to level 4, the green level, which is the heart chakra. And
Yes.
so we'll be discussing that in shortly here. I want to give a shameless plug. I wrote a book called The Care and Feeding of Ghosts and the Children Who See Them. It is on Amazon, and 'tis the season, so to speak. I figured I'd share it.
Yes.
um, Lots of haunting stuff going on. Everybody loves, ghost stories, and so it's chock full of stories of things that happened to me and to my children and to relatives, and then it has sage advice for how to
Simple.
handle when you have something odd going on, and how to kind of investigate it, and rule out other things, and basically don't panic, because the really weird stuff that you see in Hollywood movies and on television is,
Hollywood and television.
I mean,
Yeah.
it just, stuff doesn't fly around the room with every ghost. It's just a rarity, and it's just amazing how people go on. But speaking of that, I wanted to also, we're trying to come up with little short pieces for behind the curtain, kind of just a little something short, fun, interesting, things that make you go, hmm.
Yeah.
And before we get into the content of the show, and um, there is a show that premiered on Netflix on Friday, excuse me, and it's called 28 Days Haunted. And the premise of the show is, it's like 6 or 8 weeks, or 6 or 8
Episodes.
episodes, thank you. And they used 3 places, one in Connecticut, one in Denver, Colorado, and the third is right up the road from me in Madison, North Carolina, which is also where Margot's some of Margot's family's from, or lived.
My
And
maternal family is from there. Yeah.
yeah, and so the one in Madison, and so they what they did was they put a team of paranormal investigators and slash psychics into, which meant like 2 to 3 people in each location, and they stayed for 28 days and they were trying to go through, or put to the test, a theory that belonged to Ed and Lorraine Warren. And I don't know if you're familiar with Ed and Lorraine Warren, but there are several uh, movies that have come out about their experiences. They were like demonologists, and she was psychic, and both of them have passed away. But they would bring like haunted objects back to their home and keep them in enclosed cases in a room where nobody was allowed to go in. And it's like Annabelle was theirs. I can't think. There's several of those movies that have been done about cases that they worked on. Amityville Horror was one of the cases they worked on, that sort of thing. But their theory was that if you stayed the 28, it was a 28-day cycle theory, and they said that oh, The Conjuring was their other movies. Um, that the investigators would have to uncover the secrets of a haunted location fully. The investigators must stay there for a minimum of 28 days. During that period, they mustn't have much external communication and try to resolve the case as much as possible. They explained that the time would be far from easy, as usually investigators would spend a few hours or even a couple of days in a place to establish a connection with spirits in the area. However, the extended stay would agitate supernatural elements in their area, particularly those of a malevolent nature. And over time, the veil between the realms of the living and the dead would get thinner before becoming virtually non-existent during the last few days. So that's what this series is are the investigators going to last? Or they, blah, 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 blah. And so I've started watching it out of curiosity. But y'all remember, this is television. And I knew the TAPS team that used to have the Ghost Hunters show. They talked about how when they were giving people, okay, is this place haunted or is it not, and how much paranormal activity is there, and they would start doing the little session where table with the people and start explaining, and the producers would step in and say, "Wait, can't you say that it is definitely haunted?" No, I'm not saying it's definitely haunted because we've had a few things that are kind of iffy. Well, then use this word or this word instead. And they would like critique every word the people were saying. And they said, and then the editing and all is just crazy because it makes it look scarier and all that stuff. So please, whenever you look at these shows, take them with a grain of salt. Um, but a big grain of salt. How about a spoonful of salt? Uh, and
Entertainment value only, right?
but Madison Dry Goods, I used to work in Madison and knew the owners pretty well years ago. And I revisited them this week because I wanted to see if they wanted to sell copies of my book. Uh, and they said yes. So I went to deliver them and I was talking to them. Uh, Madison Dry Goods, the reason that the investigators, this is where they're staying, um, it's a storefront now, and it's kind of like a little country store. They sell clothing, sort of think
Department store. Yeah.
LL Bean, that type of thing. And then they have another side of the store that's like country cooking stuff and recipes, or not recipes, but like
Kitchen
mixes
dry
and
goods. Yeah.
yeah, typical dry goods.
Food and cooking
Um,
tributes. Yeah.
Right. But the store on the second floor, he has put in a museum because it used to be a mortuary.
Dun dun
Dun,
dun.
dun, dun. And Richard, the current owner, said that they do have a lot of paranormal activity in the store, and they've been on podcasts and um, told stories about it and stuff like that. And anyway, so Netflix found out and said, "We want to pay you to close down your store for 34 days so we can film this show." And they put equipment, like all the cameras and stuff, set them up and put the people in there. And they had like a satellite trailer where they kind of watched the goings on and I guess, would talk to people because like it shows the people, they do come outside and like they're on the sidewalk or on the street in the middle of the night and it's totally deserted and that type of thing. But Madison, that's where the mortuary was back in the 20s and 30s. Um, so what happened is there was a family called uh,
Lawrence?
Lawson's. The Lawson,
Lawson's.
yeah, the Lawson family. On Christmas Day, 1929, the father shot his wife and 6 children, and one of the oldest daughter was pregnant. I've got the book about it, White Christmas, Bloody Christmas, and it was and it's been so long since I've read this. I need to reread it again. But what they believe is that the daughter was pregnant with her father's baby, and that he
Did you
just
say
kind of went out.
29?
Yes,
October of 29.
November, I mean December 25th. No, not
Yeah.
1929.
Do you know what
But
happened?
October
In
29 is
that
the crash. Yeah, stock market
So
crash.
Dad might have been flipping out over a few things.
Yeah, and I believe they were tobacco farmers also.
Yeah.
So they lived kind of in the outskirts of Madison, and they're buried up that way. But when they retrieved all the bodies from the murder, they were taken to what is now Madison Dry Goods. And so the thought is on the show is, are these people haunting Madison Dry Goods building? Which, anyway, watch it. You decide for yourself. But I
You
have
might
my
get a good
doubts.
giggle. You might get a good
Yeah,
laugh out of it.
yeah. But the other
Entertaining.
thing,
Definitely
on a
entertaining.
side note, I had a friend that lived in the outskirts of Madison in a farmhouse that belonged to a relative of the Lawsons. It was, I think it was the brother of the father that did the shooting. The brother lived in this house, and he was like the first one that was called to go take care of business when the family was discovered. And my friend who lived in this house, and then I was a roommate for a few months at one point. But my friend would see an old man walk through every so often and scare the bejesus out of him. And, and then I saw him too. So the house, that guy's house was haunted. And that's a relative of losses. Who knows? Maybe they were just a haunting family. Who knows? But but that's just sort of a behind the scenes and in it a small world type connection. So there
Thank
you
you.
go.
Thank you. Yeah, it's yeah, paranormal activity. Tis the
Yeah.
season. Tis the season. Very cool. Thank you for sharing. It was very cool to learn a little bit more. I'll talk to
Yeah.
my mom is still around. She'll be 90 in a few months. Um, yeah, I'll ask her what she remembers because she was born in 33. So
So
she
she
might have
probably,
heard stories. Yeah.
yeah.
In the
I mean, a lot of
rollout.
people still talked about it. And if you try to go up and see the tombstones now,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
kind of have it blocked off. And if people wander on that property, there's homes close enough that they'll come and chase you off the property. They don't want people going up there around the graves.
That kind of makes sense.
And that's another thing. A lot of paranormal people, they talk about, oh, let's go to the graveyard. Graveyards in general are not haunted.
That's not where
And
they hang out.
no, and so don't fall for that crap, you know?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, don't fall for that crap. Yeah, I mean, think about it. You want to hang out where your dead body is stowed, or do you want to go visit all the happy places or the places that need closure in your life
Yeah.
or in your former life? Or do you want to watch your body decay?
And what
Eh,
is this shit with thinking people are stuck? If I hear one more person say the spirits are stuck, we need to free them. They're already free. They're a fucking spirit. Okay.
called choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something is attracting them to stay there. It's not about being stuck. Yeah.
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 So
Something's
I just,
attracting.
yeah, that drives me.
We'll have to do an episode about that good stuff.
Yeah. I'll put it on
Yeah, I'll put it
stuck
on the roster
spirit.
for this. There you go, for December maybe, because that's also a good time to tell ghost stories,
Yes.
believe it or not. And we'll talk about the irony of that, ghost stories at
Mm-hmm.
Christmas time. Yeah, there's a whole thing about that. So, because I used to do Ghost and Gourmet, and so I did some
That's
research.
right.
Did some research on that. So, back to what we're doing today, heart chakra,
Yay!
which centers a lot on forgiveness and compassion and letting go, which kind of ties into what you're talking about. People not forgiving and not letting go. Instead, getting hostile about it and shooting each other for posterity.
Yeah.
So, I didn't mean for it to come out that way, but it
I
worked.
noticed I have my green bell today.
No. Guys, look at the chart right in the middle, the green box with the pink edging on it, and it's pointing to the green area around Roy G. Biv's arms, chest, and hands. The green heart chakra, it's also recognized as pink, and it's also recognized as iridescent or pearl or mother of pearl looking as well, rainbowy. But for tonight's conversation, we're going to stick with green, and it affects all those areas: your heart, your lungs, your ribs, your upper spine, your shoulder blades, asthma, blood pressure, pulmonary stuff, arms and hands, arthritis or bone and muscle and ligature uh, situations on shoulders and elbows and wrists and fingers and hands. That's all heart chakra
I want
related
to say, give a shout
anatomy.
out. Dale and Jeannie, hello. And look, they gave us a little green heart. I think Jeannie's the one that posted that. So thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Yay! She found a little green heart for us. It's good to see you. And I'm glad she jumped in because that gives me a segue. We have sort of standard heart chakra information to talk about with each level of chakra, but I wanted to go to the next level and walk a little further along with tying this information in with the interview podcast we had last week with Dale Stacy, specifically talking about the TSH, tiny space of the heart. And it's a very underdeveloped concept in Western society for the most part that is now starting to come forward a lot. And very grateful that people like Dale and Jeannie talk about these good things. And I'm trying to carry that torch forward a little bit. So,
Cool.
heart chakra, just some basics, and then we'll work our way up to that. In the 7 chakra system, there's a 12 chakra system, there's a 20 chakra system, there's a umpteen billion chakra system. But for the sake of simplicity, the 7 chakra system, this is the chakra number 4. And if you, Iris, can zoom us in on the rows and columns that are, yep, just the heart chakra by itself. And you can see going across in the different columns from this whole chart. But the top, the column headings, prime function, divine function, physical property, and the sense. You see the little drop down one row, you see the word sense, beside it the word gland, anatomical. Also, the next column, emotional connections, and even what kinds of feelings that go along with that. So, in terms of the heart, let's go backwards from where we left off. Feelings. The heart chakra talks to us about human love. There's also cosmic love. And the part of the gland system, because, sidebar, some people would rather talk about this as an endocrine gland system rather than a chakra system. And so the thymus is the major endocrine gland that is here, but it also affects the lymph system, all of the immune system, allergies, blood pressure, any circulation. Physical properties and divine principles are things like, I mentioned a second ago, forgiveness, esteem, warmth, sharing, love for self, love for others, spiritual and or cosmic love, profound love, relationships with your higher self, also known as God. And this is a great chakra to work on emotional balance in terms of your center for, look in the first column, compassion, ego, positive attitude, love, connection, and hope. These are all issues, concepts, and body parts related to the 4th chakra, the heart chakra. A sidebar that we over to the right that has green diagonal labels are other tools that affect heart chakra workings on a more universal scale, such as planetary stuff, musical notes, elements, aromatherapies, and so on, food, incense, crystals, or stones. And while this list is not all inclusive, it does help give you some basic ones that are easy to find, such as the aromatherapy, rose and jasmine. Both affect heart chakra goings on. Air, the planet Jupiter. If you're into metals, you like copper bracelets, copper necklaces, and so on. Copper is your heart chakra metal. Vegetables are the food that nourish a heart chakra. Chamomile fragrance, obviously tea as well, because you smell it and drink it. But at the same time, clove and chicory, which are also good smells and fall under incenses. And as far as crystals go, anything that is pink, green, or opalescent and pearly. So opals, rose quartz, peridot, jade, emeralds, mother of pearl, pearl itself. Those are all heart chakra stones. Now, bring us back, Iris, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Now, one of the heart chakra is one of the major chakras out of the all 7 or all 12 or all, I think there's another 16 or something like that. I can't remember right now, but it's a major one. There are probably about 3 major ones, but it's a major one by itself because it's a major intersection of all the others. It's the 4th chakra and the 3rd chakra are basically the dividing line between lower vibrations and higher vibrations. Side note, the lower higher does not denote worse and better. It denotes speed, all right, of vibration, speed of frequency. So lower equals slower and higher equals faster vibration. All right. So it's basically a division between, it's basically on the dividing line between our higher awareness self versus our lower awareness self. And because of that, it can, there's more to it than that, but because of that one aspect, it generates amazing healing and transformation for humans. It affects almost every element of your physical health. You guys have probably heard of heart math. Iris, you've heard of that phrase or even know what it's about? Mm-hmm.
It seems like I've heard it somewhere, but I honestly, it's not ringing. I mean, I wouldn't be
Without
able to.
explain it right, I'm not going to try to explain it because it's quite involved. But it is a technique that has to do with breathing and getting your body and your vagus nerve in sync in your heart area using mathematics and meditations and your vagus nerve, which is a central nerve that goes right through there in your torso, and it optimizes your energetic and chemical balance, which is what your heart does with the thymus and so on. Now, keep in mind, we all know how important your heart is. Your heart is actually one of the more important. I'm getting intuitive here. I'm picking up stuff. Yeah, they're telling me to go there. It's actually one of the more important organs in your whole body, including your what we think your brain is, what we have been told our brain is. Um, a long story short, your heart has its own brain functions. It actually has its own uh, neural nets and pathways and so on with it that's very, very similar to the base of your brain. And it actually responds and knows of occurrences and actions anywhere from seconds to several hours before they happen. They've recorded it for thousands of years. People react based on information from that level, or they can actually hook people up with sensors and put them in a situation that, in a testing situation where people um, are to respond to the awareness of an event, write something down or push the right button, and the event does not happen in the lab for several minutes or several hours. And it works every time with every type of human from all kinds of levels, all kinds of awareness, all kinds of health. Um, there are tons and tons of studies to show this, that the brain actually has its own, um, the heart. The heart actually has its own brain.
Well, and that kind of makes sense too, where people have had transplants
Yes.
and they
Yeah.
talk about the 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 physical changes that both, well, I say physical, but the feelings and
Awareness.
emotions, awarenesses that come to them, that like some guy said, now I really enjoy beer. I never liked beer before, or there was just so much to the heart.
There was a man of color who got a white man's heart, and he suddenly had a yin for white women, and he never had before. He was never attracted to them before. Suddenly he was. That's just one example. The food thing happens a lot. The foods and the penchants for different foods and drinks that they never considered before turn out to be favorites of the original heart user. I guess you'd say
Yeah.
of the original of the donor, and the heart retains all that energy and information, which, as a side note, makes me think about everybody who's gotten a blood transfusion.
Hmm.
Because where does that blood go? Over and over and over for hours and hours every day before it shoots out into a needle, then a tube, and then a bag, and then back into another needle, tube, and bag, and into another human. What's it bringing with it energetically? Ooh, the potential for that discussion can go on and on and on. It'd be an interesting set of interviews.
Have you
To
ever been around blood, like when somebody's getting a transfusion? The
I've
energy is.
donated a ton of it, but I don't know about. I haven't been around somebody
Have you
receiving
ever
it.
paid attention when you were donating if other people are donating, it's like the energy?
Oh, they get. It's like a morgue.
Well, and
It's
it's like,
weird.
but it's like the energy from the blood. You know what I mean? It's not the people energy; it's the blood
Please
energy.
describe what you're talking about because this is intriguing. I
Well,
mean,
it's
to me, it's a
like,
very sedate environment. But tell me what you experience.
well, it's just because I can't give blood. The couple of times that I've tried giving,
Hmm.
some I the first time was the first time I went into dry heaves,
Mm,
and the second time I nearly passed out, and it was because I can't remember what happened the first time, but anyway, the second time it turned out later I found out I was pregnant. And it's like something just, and when I, even when I'm at the doctor's office and they take a couple of vials of
yeah,
blood,
yeah.
it's like I can feel the energy going. I
You're so
feel
sensitive.
it
Oh,
just, and it's like it's the weirdest, and my body just kind of, it's like, wait a minute, where's it going? Come back. And and it's very,
visceral to you.
yes. And so when where I worked, we used to have blood drives, and I would
Mhm.
go through those rooms and I would just get creeped out. I mean, it was just, and it wasn't the fact that blood doesn't bother me in general. I mean, I can watch people get stuck. I could watch somebody get open heart surgery. That doesn't bother me. But the energy, I don't know if it's all the people or the blood back, but even I can remember, I think there was time like where my mom or my dad got blood. Some relative was in the hospital, and it was just something about an energy around that blood bag. Like I've gone and looked at what kind of saline solution are you getting, or what kind of
Right,
drugs are they added and
right.
all that. But the blood, it's like, and it's not the creepy even when you touch it because it's not that. It's
Yeah,
it's like, whoa.
it feels a
It's
lot more
just,
sacred to you.
yeah.
Nope, that's not my experience. I mean, I'm intellectually aware that it's a sacred thing and all that good stuff, but
But and it just
to
seems
me,
like,
it's just as sacred as any other human walking around. There's a big bag of blood with bones and a heart and
but it's
liver
a
and lungs.
different
That's an
energy
old
than what
human,
the
or
other
it's
people are having there.
a little hunk of sacred sitting over there in a plastic bag. So to me, it's just as sacred as a human, but not anything
It just seems
special.
like there's essence around it or something that
Sure, I'm sure there
doesn't
is.
belong to the people that are in the room.
If you want to talk about more about what actually happens at blood banks, that might be going down a rabbit hole.
Oh Jesus, I didn't even think about that.
You didn't think about that? I'm like,
Not in this
Irish
context,
is
no.
stepping all over it.
Well, no wonder, Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. There's some. I'm just gonna say one. There's some nefarious stuff associated to some blood banks. I don't. We're not gonna name names to some blood banks. So that might have been what you were tuning into. Don't know.
That makes sense.
So moving on. Blood is very much a part of the fourth chakra. Obviously, it's a major component of all the heart's workings. And the brain, there is a minor brain physically on the heart. There is a nerve trigger inside of the heart. I think it's in the pacemaker that when they do open heart surgery, they cannot touch it. If they do, the heart will stop. It's that hair of a trigger and it will not start again. So, I mean, so there's a whole little zone in there that they can't even touch. A mutual friend of ours went through heart surgery uh, about a
Mm-hmm.
year plus ago, and we've learned all kinds of fascinating things about what happens then, from anesthesia all the way down to all the way through recuperation and the ins and outs of that relative to what your heart goes through, and as well as you energetically do. And an interesting aspect of heart medicine that Dale Stacy brought up last week in his book called, and it's sitting, there's 3 diamonds on it. Shoot, come on. Y'all write it in the comments.
Shaman, 3D Shaman 3.
Simply
Yeah,
Shaman Mystery School. I just
I
remembered
was
it.
looking for my copy. I thought
Simply
it was
Shaman
still in
Mystery
here.
School.
Yeah.
And in it, it talks about the TSH. TSH. If you, Iris, if you want to give them a banner on there, the tiny space of the heart. And in our conversation, he confirmed that that is also a term that describes the tipping point, the I took all kinds of notes and now it's going out of my head because that was last week. The tipping point, the crescendo, the creation point, the big bang point, the Iris, what is it when the other word I thought of is the liminal space. The TSH, the tiny sparse space of the heart, is the fraction of time in between things that exist onto something else that exists. Another good example is when you breathe, when you inhale and hold, and then you exhale, that turning point where you can choose to hold or not, that is a TSH. That is a liminal space. That is a tipping point. The Big Bang itself, the beginning of creation, that was a TSH. 0 point. Thank you. That was another, yes, that was another popular phrase that's known for it. Absolutely. And so the TSH, a TSH, one of the TSHs, like chakras, we have tons of TSHs all over our bodies. But for the sake of conversation, DNA is a TSH. The whole human body is one giant TSH for another cause that's bigger than us, and so on. But reeling it back in, talking about the heart, there is a special spot, place, location, door in the heart chakra that if you go through it and open the door, you're going to experience on the other side of that door whatever you expect to. And it can be, yes, an event horizon happens. Thank you. Oh, yes, perfect
That
wording.
was a movie.
And it
Now I
also,
gotta go back and watch the movie.
as I say, it was also occurred. The event horizon was featured. That concept was featured a lot in that Matthew McConaughey movie, where he traveled through time after he went out in space
Yeah.
with Anne Hathaway.
Mhm.
I can't remember the name of it. If you guys remember the name of that movie, and he eventually saves the world by going to another. They all end up on another moon of Jupiter, and his daughter is now like 103 years old. But anyway, he goes by through the event horizon of a black hole. A black hole is a TSH also. It's also a 0 point energy and event horizon, a a tipping point, and so on. So, and a liminal space. Liminal is LIM, N as in Nancy, AL, LIMNAL, and that's called a liminal space when you use that word. So, and it's the same thing. It's the tiny space between what is and the next what is. Therefore, an event horizon. Therefore, that tiny space, tiny door in the heart chakra, generically called a TSH in this conversation, and you can manifest from that point. Once you hit that, become aware of, participate in, act upon that part of your heart chakra, you can manifest from the TSH into whatever reality you need or want or perceive, limited only by your imagination. Now, we're constantly told we're powerful beings, we can create anything, we're many gods, we are gods, etc., and all this other beautiful verbiage. But we don't actually always know mechanically how to actually start doing that from a third dimensional, third density intelligence perspective that is fraught with duality and fear and inhibition and all kinds of technologies that shut us down and make us feel unworthy, undeserving, and unaware. Having this verbiage, this awareness that you can actually meditate on your green chakra or pink chakra or iridescent chakra or fourth chakra or heart chakra or whatever you want to call that noisy booger in your chest.
The space. The space.
Yeah. David, one guy, his heart was all the way over on top of his stomach. It was really weird. But yeah, his aorta was all stretched out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it moves around, and people joked around and called him Spock and stuff like that because they're switched on Vulcans according to the um, uh,
Gene Roddenberry.
Gene Roddenberry universe. Yep, and he, so and they have what green? No, yeah, green blood, which is interesting because some animals on Earth have blue blood, where humans have red blood, and that's because the primary mineral is copper in their blood, where our primary mineral is iron. So they're, I think, like stingrays, stuff like that, have blue. They bleed blue, and it's either stingrays or not king crabs, horseshoe crabs, one of those guys that you know swim along the floor. But anyway, really cool animals. So anyway, back to where we were. There is a whole host. I mean, I mentioned it and then I blew right past it. You can manifest anything from that awareness, meditating on your heart chakra because it has that much capability and more. Alongside of that, for years, I've listened to and observed as well the concept of high heart, HIGH, high heart, almost like a secondary chakra that in theory is a little bit above your heart and behind it further back in your chest. All right, up and back is the theory that I've heard about. Well, just like on humans, their hearts can be located a little left, a little right, more center, a little more down, more up, whatever. Your chakras are also non-specific from person to person. The sucker can move around and be anywhere. So same thing with the high heart. It can go anywhere, it can be anywhere. And just about, but relatively it is a little bit higher. And this too is considered a secondary, more intense point of manifestation of higher awareness of higher self. It's a gateway of leaving the heart and going into a more intense, let's say, version, a more substantial version of a heart chakra for the purpose of awareness, understanding, compassion, self-awareness, and cosmic awareness. Ultimately, eventually you circle back around and find out they're the same thing. But at this point, we're working on self-awareness and eventually cosmic awareness. If you're going up in baby steps like most humans do. And as we wake up in spiritual or energetic terms. And these are tools to have the awareness of how much capability and sheer access that you have right there. And you always have. And you always will, because you ain't got one, you're not alive. You're not walking around upright. So as long as you're walking around upright, or at least awake on your back, something, as long as your thumper's bumping, you have access to extremely high awarenesses and experiences of what else humans are, including yourself, beyond this amazing bag of bones and skin that each of us appears to be. You can ask anything. Go ahead.
Tell a little bit about. Okay, so we know this THS space is there, and I can remember Dale talking about like meditating inward, like going into the heart space, and what my understanding was.
Go look for it a little bit, right?
Yeah, go look for it, and like kind of treat it like a doorway, and
right.
That you're opening a door to see, and compared it, or we did in the conversation, compared it to like the Men in Black, where Jay opens the door and like and just like the little people that were in the locker, when he opened a regular door, it was like suddenly he was in a locker kind of deal.
For a
And
much bigger cosmos.
yeah, and that's sort of what you're doing when you're going into the heart space and looking for that doorway to where you can manifest. Is that so?
Yes.
How does that work?
How
I'm
does that work?
just
So what you're describing is on each side of the doorway. Jay's, in this case, in the movie, the character Jay and his Men in Black world, where we see most of the movie happen. And at the end, you see these giant beings walking by in their gigantic train station, and you realize that Jay and you and the camera are all inside of a tiny, uh, Foot Locker security, locker in that in another world's much larger assemblage. And what we're overlooking is the doorway itself. All right. The actual door, the actual doorknob, the actual door frame is representational of where that magic happens. That is your liminal space. That is your event horizon. That is your critical mass where everything changes. Now, continuing with that example, the Men in Black, when Jay and Kay opened that door and saw a replica larger, I guess it was a train station on the other side of the door, similar to the Foot Locker that they opened at a train station here on Earth. That was those two characters' filters. They saw another train station. They saw the doorway as another locked Foot Locker, as another locker, bus station locker. Somebody in a different awareness, that event horizon, that tiny TSH, that liminal space could have manifested something else entirely, a giant ocean, infinite space, another side of this planet instead of a completely different planet. An interior space, the infinitely tiny quantum world could have suddenly been big enough to see or an experience instead of being so microcosmically, subatomically small, and on and on and on. So, or you could suddenly be seeing life through the eyes of a fish, or suddenly seeing seeing the world through the eyes of a bird, or something like that. It's all perspective. The doorway itself is the actual magic point, not what's beyond it.
so what you do is when you're looking at that doorway, you manifest what you want to see on the other side.
Yes. Yes. What you ask for, or what you expect, or what you subconsciously anticipate is what will show up.
And so does that
It's like
then
dreaming, which is a liminal space, which is a space between awake and asleep.
so is that how then when you manifest, when you go to that space, like you would go to that door and you'd go, okay, this is what I want to see in my life or what I want to bring into my life, and open the door and imagine that, and then that will then manifest.
It can, yes, it can manifest in your personal life as well, because and my nose is going off because because now that you have a frontal lobe experience of it, that vibration is further, deeper, more profoundly in your awareness day to day and in the moment. It's much easier to manifest that energy, that slash scenario slash outcome or event in your day to day life by letting it come through that tiny doorway, event horizon, critical mass point, liminal space in your heart. In other words, your whole heart becomes a gateway. And inside that gateway is another gateway, which means there's probably another gateway inside of that, and infinitely on, because everything is infinite. Nothing is finite. So nothing is finite. And so it's a manifestation point. Now, we're talking about cool stuff you can do with your heart, inside of your heart, other stuff related to your heart. The heart itself is an amazing teacher. all by itself. Not only does, quite frankly, keep all your shit together, which is what heart math is about, is optimizing that harmony and balance everywhere with your chemistry and your bioelectrics and your, you know, all of that, um, is the study and the practice of that with heart math. But not only that, just being in your heart on this side of the door, even before you get to the door. When humans get adept at, I want to say two concepts, but ultimately they're the same concept, but two concepts that are heart driven, and they are very simply sounding forgiveness and compassion. We can forgive other people, almost 99% of them, all day long. There's maybe 1% that it would take a while. You'd have to have some self-talk and some friends and maybe a couple of beers or a couple of glasses of wine before you could see your way to forgiving some negative people that you might have met in your life or had to live with. And but for the most part, we can forgive other people fairly easy. Um, forgiveness of self. Bam. That's breaks. That's the hard part that most people run into. To get into forgiveness, you have to use compassion and recognize the mirror that everything is for everyone, everything else, and that is for you. Anything that shows up in your life, any situation, any person, any incident, any knowledge, awareness, information coming over the internet, over the television, out of books, out of poetry, music, everything that comes out at you is a mirror of you. So that means anything you find that's really cool or really fascinating, music, entertainment, you know, philosophers, guess what? You're seeing you. You're seeing a part of you that's really cool. And this works the other way. When you run into somebody who's a total asshole and triggers you and freaks you out and makes your heart chakra go, yeah. Guess what? You're looking at a part of yourself that you don't approve of. Okay, compassion lets us go, I got that problem too. Yeah, that's one of my baggages too. And sometimes, ooh, yeah, that's an ancestral baggage because I see it in my parents, grandparents, and so on and so on. Or you might see it in your culture or subculture. And you're like, yeah, that's ancestral baggage. So you can subscribe to it or unsubscribe to it. You can use your heart chakra to go into compassion. Use forgiveness. Once you get into compassion, use forgiveness. By the way, you got to look up what forgiveness is. Iris, have we done a show on what is forgiveness?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I thought we did.
Forgive and remember was the name of it.
Okay. So, yeah, forgiveness doesn't mean what some people think it means. More people understand it now than they used to. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness is about freeing up yourself from the chains and the bonds of the past and the negative emotions that you associate to that person / situation. And you free them up too as a secondary thing, but it's mostly about freeing up yourself.
And a lot of times it's forgiving yourself because you think you've made a mistake. Why did I let them do that to me? Why did I?
Yeah. And you're beating yourself up for something you didn't know better at the time. All right. Yeah. You don't beat up a 12-year-old for a mistake he made when he was 5 because he didn't know better. He was 5. Well, you got to give yourself the same grace. Mm-hmm. The son of Don Miguel Ruiz, I regret I do not know his son's name. If somebody knows his son's name, please feel free to put that in comments if you can beat Iris to it. But put The Fifth Agreement. He's the author of The Fifth Agreement.
Don Miguel Ruiz Jr.?
That would explain it. I could have made that up.
And then he has another son. Well, there's a Don Jose and Miguel Ruiz.
So one of his sons came up with a forgiveness ritual that my husband and I have done with a couple of groups maybe about 3 or 4 groups. It's been about 10 years, 9 years, 8 years since we've done it. But in this forgiveness ritual, you forgive. Long story short, you say specific things and do specific things, and it's very intense and emotional and extremely powerful and actually a lot of fun and very loving. And you take turns forgiving everybody else in the group, even if you don't know them, because we're all reincarnated versions of each other. So we've crossed paths thousands of times and we have offended each other thousands of times. We all have karma with each other. For the most part, if you're an adult on earth, you pretty much have karma with somebody, everybody. And remember, we're trying to forgive ourselves, and everybody is a part of us. So forgiving ourselves is forgiving them, is forgiving ourselves, is forgiving them infinitely, blah, 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 blah. You get my point. You go around the room and you go through a little bitty, you speak through a forgiveness ritual, and then the last person to do is yourself. And very few people can do it. There's a lot of crying and there's a lot of hugging, as you can imagine, and a lot of giggling and laughing, and a lot of crying and hugging as you go through the group around the circle. But when you get to yourself, it's like it's like hitting a wall, and you're like, oh wow. And then you get mad at yourself for withholding from yourself for not. What the hell? I just thought I figured out, about forgiveness, and I forgave all those other people aspects of myself, and suddenly not this one. Wow, what kind of idiot am I? What kind of rookie am I? No, that's that beating yourself up again. So he has a really good book, the son of Don Miguel Ruiz,
And I think actually I figured it out because Don Miguel Ruiz, his full name is Miguel I, Angel, but but you say
Angel.
it's been Angel Ruiz Macias, better known as Don Miguel Ruiz. But then he has a son, Miguel Ruiz Jr., and one that is Don Jose Ruiz. And I think Don Jose and Don Miguel are the ones that they've they've like done books
Jose Miguel,
together.
yeah, and yeah.
Yeah.
Jose Ruiz and Miguel Ruiz. So Miguel Ruiz is doctor, and Jose is his son. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's just another example of a heart forgiveness exercise and how powerful it can be, just in and of itself, even before you get to those amazing magical portals, nay accesses to higher self, higher wisdom, infinite creativity, the God source, your higher self, your God self. Essentially, that's the contact point inside your heart, and all those things are fantastic. There's not words to describe how amazing that revelation and wonderful that gift is, which means you're a wonderful gift if you own a heart. All right. But the thing in front of that, the heart itself, that too is an amazing tool and piece of your awareness that can transcend even your 3D self, who is not normally, but often described as a creature that lacks. We lack awareness. We're delicate. We can't go out in space. We need oxygen. It's easy to break our bones compared to the rest of the universe. We're weak as hell. We can only pick up a few 100 pounds at most. Some of us can't do that. On and on and on and on. Until you find out what else humans can do that have very little to do with physicality. It can. You can manifest that. Go through that door. You can be a power lifter of the highest grade doing that. But the heart itself is an amazing 3-dimensional tool that is a gateway to 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 13th, 15th dimensional existence. Right there. Right there. And you got one. And you and you and you and you. You all have one. A revelation I have is every single cell in your body has it too, has a smaller version. Your DNA is an event horizon. It's a manifestation point. It is a creation point for all kinds of cool things.
And that's
So,
been scientifically proven because they know how to go in and manipulate your DNA and totally change it.
and that gesture is exactly right. It's just figuring out how to tweak the little knobs and levers using chemistry or electricity or magnetism or whatever. Um, Humans can do it just by thinking about it, which is why you have it in the first place. You can control it just by meditating on it, thinking
We
about
do
it.
that in theta healing. We can go in and change people's DNA.
Exactly. Exactly. You're accessing that TSH probably just under different lingo, different terminology.
Hmm.
You and I in the past have talked, you like yours to look like a library, and that is your infinite potential. Every book on every subject, on everything, person, and thing exists in that Akashic library.
Hmm.
Well, that Akashic library is a TSH to something else bigger than us, or a bigger part of us would be more accurate
Hmm.
way of saying it. So we have rolled around very quickly to 10:33. I
Yes.
have been talking for an hour.
Well, it's just an abundance of information. I mean,
It's fascinating stuff. I wanted to do a really quick heart meditation, if you don't
mm,
mind. Most people um, really enjoy that good stuff.
okay.
And I know Iris, I normally ask you to do this.
Hmm.
Enjoy. You sit back and soak up and enjoy for a
Oh,
little
cool. Okay, great.
bit. So my usual start off that's very effective for most people. Take a nice deep breath. Inhale positive energy. Hang on to that TSH and then blow out. And enjoy that reality. At the bottom of that breath, there's another TSH. There's another tipping point. Inhale. Because you're heading right for another tipping point. Every breath is two tipping points. It just goes on and on. All right. And that's all heart chakra. That's all breathing, lungs. That's all heart
I'm
chakra
feeling
awareness.
like one of those little bobby birds with the water. You know, it's like,
Yes.
oh, up, now go down.
His
I'm
little
up.
top hat and his little red Mercury body. Yes. That's exactly what we kind of are. Take another deep breath. We'll settle into this one. Close your eyes. And in your mind's eye, turn your attention or your feelings to a beautiful, glowing, white, greenish, pinkish light that is glowing up from your chest. In your mind's eye, behind your eyelids, you can see light emanating or softly glowing upwards like a light bulb is below your face and in your chest. And it has mostly white, but it has a soft corona of either rainbow, pearly, or maybe a greenish or pinkish tinge. Inhale and power up that light. Inhale on the next breath, more positive energies coming in, blowing out anything that does not serve you. Inhaling positive energies, blowing out to make space. In your mind's eye, see or feel that beautiful light in your chest expanding, and it's turning other things into white lights. Watch your lungs, your blood, your bones, your ribs. They're turning into white light. As you inhale, more sustaining energy comes in. And you blow out to make more room for this lovely transformation. The white light rolls down your arms, nerves, turning your bones and muscles white and alive. The skin, it rolls, the light. Every time you inhale, it flows further out down your wrists and fingers and hands, turning them to a beautiful white light. And the white light is spreading out elsewhere. In your mind's eye, look back at your chest. Inside your chest, the most intense light is in the middle where your heart is. But when you breathe in, more light expands down and up your spine, your back, up through your neck and into your head, turning your teeth, your skull, your bones, your sinuses, your eyes, your hair white. And down your back, turning your torso, your organs, your blood is all turning white and optimizing and flowing and straightening out and strengthening and rejuvenating every time you inhale, every time you exhale. Allow the white light to flow on down into your legs, your knees, your calves, your feet, turning all of them white. Those tissues, those bones, all the way to your toes. And if you like, you can let the energy flow out into the ground and have a nice heart connection, grounding you with an equal white light vibration just beneath your feet. And it spreads out a little bit, truth be told. Gaia likes it when we do that. But all of you, in your mind's eye, you're vibrating white light that's radiating from your chest. In your mind's eye, tour around your body and see, are there any spots that you missed? Look behind your elbow, maybe between your fingers, between your toes, the back of your head. What about inside your mouth? Is your tongue white? Go let it turn white. Let it be crystalline white, pearly white, paper white, misty white, cloudy white, infinite bright white light, whatever it is. A beautiful heart chakra, rainbowy light, white. And just enjoy this vibration for several seconds here. Inhale to power it up even more. You're sharing that white light when you exhale. All around you, your aura can turn whiter and whiter when you exhale. Now, for the sake of focusing our awareness, exercise your awareness now to bring back all these Rolling white light rays of energy and let it come back up your legs. See or feel your skin and bones return to their beautiful original flesh tones and beiges and reds and browns and blues. Some of our vessels are blue and green, a lot of colors in there, yellow. But let the white light, heart light, come up through your legs, into your torso. It's rolling back out of your hands, up your arms. See or feel those gorgeous, vibrant colors returning to your hands, your fingers, your wrists, your arms. The light is gathering in your chest. It's rolling, rolling back, going home. It's coming up through your torso and gathering in your chest cavity. Going home, coming down. You can inhale and blow out to make grace and ease happen. The light gathers down into your chest, your face, your hair, your skin and eyes. All return, your brain, meninges return to their beautiful original colors. And the light is gathering under your face and in your chest, down through your neck. All of it is inside of your ribs, drawing back in and in, getting more intense and settling in. All of those beautiful light particles, energy waves, photons, neutrons, quarks, atoms, quantum particles, electrons, photons are all gathering in a nice, beautiful crystalline pattern, your choice, whatever pattern you like, in your heart. And that pattern begins moving to a pulse, to the rhythm that your heart is generating already. See that pattern move and bump or wave to the heartbeats that you already have. Place your hands on your heart, on your chest. All of that magic is right there under your hands. And it always will be. Namaste. When you're ready, come back. Be here now.
Nice.
A little impromptu, but it went where it wanted to go.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you.
Well,
Hi, Donna.
yes,
Donna
Donna.
jumped with us. Yeah.
Yes. Um.
So,
So, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, thank you, everyone. And then we have more fun and magic next week, next month. Iris, what do we have?
We have got next week. We're going to talk about little white lies, and that's going to
Ooh.
be kind of a philosophical discussion there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll bring back our psychic readings on November 9th. On November 16th, Katie Costa. She's known as the weather shaman. She's a meteorologist, plus she is a shaman, and she does a lot of interesting things, has a YouTube program of her own, and does Reiki and some other types of healing. And then November 23rd, we're going to talk about the blue chakra.
Throat chakra.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and November 30th, Nicole DePaul of Om Sweet Om Yoga. So she's going to talk about her experience and work that she does. So,
This
yeah, a
yoga.
couple of guests this month, and
Yeah.
our psychic readings and our chakras, and then Little White Lies. So, we hope that y'all will join us for that. And yeah, so we'll wrap it up and appreciate everybody being here and good information, Margo. Appreciate you sharing and preparing all that.
Thank you for being in this space with me. It was awesome. I
So
felt
good
it.
night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you for joining The Eyes of Indigo with Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Music is Arcadia by Kevin MacLeod of Incomptech.com, licensed under Creative Commons. Visit our Facebook page for broadcast details at www.facebook.com/Eyes of Indigo. Show is copyrighted 2022 by Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. All rights reserved.